Can you hear me okay? I don't know if I can, that's a tough act to follow. I like to think of myself as funny, but these slides are going to be pretty dry compared to that. And the politics, you've got me there because I'm Canadian, and if I get worked up, maybe I'll spout off about hockey and the Olympics coming up, but I don't think you'll catch me on politics today. So just a little bit about me. My name is Molly Bruce. I work at Liberty Global. I've been there for over 20 years. We are historically a telco company, and I'll get into that in just a second. We love change. We are very dynamic. And working in ESG, I bet you all are very, very acclimated to change and working with imperfect information and trying to figure everything out on the fly. I think my latest, I don't know if you guys, many of you work with CSRD or many of the European regulations, but at about 3 o'clock, I got an email, 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was an email I thought that I have been waiting for since literally February that will give me some clarity on some of the decisions that we have to make and our approach for next year. And I was really excited, and I woke up a couple of hours later, and they basically said, no, that there's too many changes that actually, that are just unknown. And I feel like that this is kind of the atmosphere in which we live, but it also makes it really interesting. Working with the company for over 20 years, I've held a number of different jobs, from finance to investor relations to communications. And the interesting thing is, when I took this role about 4 years ago, many of you might recall what that looked like. Particularly in the UK, there were a lot of headlines, a lot of activity about greenwashing. CEOs were leaving, CFOs were getting kicked out of their positions. And my CFO did not like that one bit. He did not like the headlines, he did not like the landscape, and he really wanted to get a better grasp of what was happening in our own business. Because while we have had a lot of really good work taking place across the business, it was also quite disconnected from the business. And so I took on this job, and I've held it for the last 4 years, and I get one thing that is said to me pretty consistently, and that is, you really seem to like your job. And I thought about that, and I do like change and I like uncertainty, but actually, and I hope this resonates with you, but working in ESG is really one of the most unique positions in terms of, where else do you get to sit within an organization and get to constantly look at and think about how you're doing good in this world. You're doing good for your people. You're doing good for the planet and your communities. And I think that is, what gets me up in the morning, and I think that is something that I hope resonates with everyone here. So who are we? Well, Liberty Global, you can read this, dynamic, and that is certainly something that we are. Historically, we have been really leaning in on this telecom side. Certainly when I started, about 90% of our revenue came from cable TV. And really, we had, or part of the John Malone ecosystem. I don't know if you're familiar with the cable cowboy, but really, my CEO and a number of our early executives saw what was happening here, what Ted Turner was doing, what MTV, how that was succeeding, and they said, that can work in Europe. So they packed up, they went to Europe, and they started cobbling together these, what at the time it was so fragmented. There were thousands of cable companies across Europe, and they started just acquiring them and bringing them together and starting to build scale in infrastructure and these cable TV offers. Well, soon enough, that became digital TV, then it became broadband, then it became, voice over IP phone, and ultimately it became mobile phone. So now, at one point, I think we were, something like 25 markets across the world. We go a lot deeper, but we are a lot narrower on the telecom side, where in 5 countries, and some of those are actually joint ventures. And our telecom companies were basically, the number 1 or number 2 provider in the country. So we do have market scale, but it's not all that we do anymore. The Liberty growth side, maybe you'll see some familiar names such as Lionsgate. This is really our growth portfolio. It's a portfolio of worth about $3 billion of investments. Formula E, we've been consolidating. We are a majority stakeholder. We own about 67% today. This is actually the fastest growing motorsport in the world, and it's actually based on EVs. And so this is a really exciting venture if you're me, sitting ahead, of ESG, because we're working with an amazing agenda, an amazing customer proposition who are really on the forefront of all things sustainable. So it's great to have them in pole position, no pun intended, as one of our major investments. And Liberty Services, this is now what we have actually brought together our expertise that we have used across our portfolio of companies, across technology, across finance, a lot of these back office capabilities. And we're looking now at how can we really grow these outside of our own family of businesses and see what we can do there in terms of bringing value creation. And so what does that mean? If that is the what we do, this is what I like to think of as, I guess, the how we do it. And this is our people, planet, progress strategy. And this is our ESG or sustainability strategy that encompasses people, planet, and progress. And it's fairly new. We launched it in the summer of 2023. It took me about a year alongside my team to really kind of grasp and get our arms around what it was and what we should actually be doing as a company, what our priorities are, and as a parent, how do we authentically represent that across our family of businesses? And also, going back to that point on being dynamic, what happens to it if we change? Because M&A is a part of our vernacular. Dispositions, joint ventures, new investments that may go in and out of consolidation. What happens? What can we build that really sticks with it? And for us, I think that constant is, we believe doing good business is about being inclusive, about being sustainable and responsible. And I think, certainly, I said I wouldn't get into politics, but, I think no matter what the geopolitical landscape is at the time, no matter what the investor sentiment is, no matter what the narrative is about ESG, I think companies are in a pretty different position than they were 5 years ago, because what I think is really happening is that, I'm not sure if, thank you. I don't think customers, I don't think stakeholders, I don't think anyone, society, is ever going to go back and expect less from companies. I don't think they're going to ever expect us to do less for society, for our people, our communities, and for the planet. And I think that is something that, if that's the way it is, I don't mind that investors are being quiet. I don't mind that we're taking a break from racing to have net zero targets or to take the leadership position in ESG or sustainability or social impact measures. I kind of like that it's a little bit quiet, and the more I look at it and speak to our peers, companies are more relaxed. They're really being a little bit more reflective and putting their arms around, what it is that's important to them. And, I think there is a little bit of authenticity that is continuing to bubble up in all of this. So I don't mind this. A little bit about our business strategy before I get into social impact, because I think that this is an important place for us to start. I mentioned that when I took this job, there was a lot going on in terms of that greenwashing space. And, that, greenwashing doesn't necessarily speak to only, overstatements about the planet, but it really is about ESG commitments overall and just being disingenuous. And so one of the things that I did, I really didn't know where to start. There was so much good work happening across the company that, I didn't know what was resonating and what wasn't. And so I started with the data and really focusing in on data completeness, data accuracy, the controls. Are we compliant? Are we, how much can we trust this? And is it going to tell us what not just our starting position is, and not just where we should go, but how far we can reasonably go, and if that makes sense for us. So we took about a year and we went through the materiality assessment. I think we did all the right things. We interviewed every CEO across all of our businesses. And I think we really came out with a story and a proposition that reflects us. And that was the one directive our CEO gave me. He said, do the work, do what you need to do, but at the end of the day, I want to see something that's recognizable. I want to see something that our people recognize and that they know that this is what we stand for. And it's what we stand for today and what we're going to stand for tomorrow. And so when we developed this strategy, it really was about organization of our commitments, making sure that our claims were substantiated, making sure that we were focused on risks and compliance in the way that we need to be, that we were interacting properly with our auditors, and really getting that governance in place. I think one of the most fundamental things that we did early on was really setting up these board committees. One is completely dedicated to our strategy. It is our People, Planet, Progress Committee, and they look at our sustainability and social impact strategy. And they have been amazing because we have board members who dedicate time 4 times a year and listen to anything that we want to bring to the table. And we've got really good people on board that, I can use that time to also ask them, here's a question about SBTI, or here's a question about social impact. How have you managed that in the past? And that's not something I think that every ESG executive really gets within their own organization. We may have, we've got councils with all of our top executives that sit on them, and they are phenomenal. But they are also experts in their own space. And when I bring to them the social impact lens or connect it to sustainability, sometimes it's a little bit, well, we didn't really think about it that way and we're going to continue doing it this way. It is amazing to have that dedicated group that really is looking at things in the way that is moving you in the direction that you need to go. The other thing that has helped, nearly 80% of our colleagues, and this is a very consistent number, not just in our organization, but outside of our organization. I think I've seen numbers range from 70 to 76, but ours is a little bit higher. But when we polled our people, they consistently tell us that it is important that they work for a company that they know is standing up for the things that they believe in. They're clear on what they believe in and what they stand for, and they're willing to walk the talk. And this has also given us kind of a path to our executives to say, okay, but hey, don't forget, we have this strategy, we have these ambitions, we have these activities, and people want to see what we're doing. Another thing about this that really emerged, particularly when we were developing our strategy, was the fact that for everybody that said that they were interested in it, I think 1.5 people said that they wanted to be involved. I mean, the level of engagement in this strategy is really phenomenal, and I wouldn't underestimate that. So the anchors of our priorities: people, growing inclusively; planet, growing sustainably; and progress, how we grow with transparency, trust, responsibly. So diving into social impact. This falls really within our people priorities, and we've got 4 of them. So the culture of belonging, this is really about fostering a culture where people thrive. And we don't just look at this through, okay, you know we need to be inclusive. We know we have to have diversity of thought, and we know that it's good for the business. But this is also fostering a place where people want to come to work, where they do feel safe, where they can be themselves, and they know that up front, and they live it and experience it every day. And so how does that translate then to actually the business terms? Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that we have been very, very careful about is, and you know, we've done this through training and videos and all sorts of things, but really understanding what it is to take the bias out of certain processes so that the employee experience from hiring onward really focuses on these de-biased kind of exercises and processes. And that is something that I don't think any of us kind of consciously, you know, incorporate into our approach every day. But once you start embedding it, once you start being conscious of it, it really is something that can be very productive to your team's experience, to the overall culture. And with that comes when people are able to thrive and be their best, obviously, you know, that gives us the, you know, we want the widest access to, you know, the widest talent pool for the greatest talent. And once they're there, we want them to develop, we want them to be happy, and we want them to stay. So that's really translating that to actual business terms that make sense. Inclusive connectivity. This was really important to us going back to our telco roots because that is the business that we're in. We want everybody to be connected to the digital world. And the reality is that's not everyone's reality. There is obviously a digital divide where there are people that have access and there are people that do not. And in our position as a technology provider, we want to make sure that we are very focused and intentional about making sure that within our communities, we are doing our part to close that digital divide. Certainly with the emergence of AI, the advancement of technologies, smartphones, new ones coming out every year, it's easy to get left behind. It's easy, you know, I think of myself and the last time I dropped my phone. I don't want to get a new phone, but I don't feel that it's excluding me from anything. You know, if you don't have access to connectivity, think about how different your life would be. How do you bank? How do you shop on Amazon? What about the education? How do you find a job if you're looking for a job? I mean, it's almost unfathomable at this point. So that is something that we focus on. Tomorrow's workforce. You know, we also as a company are very focused on hiring very technical-based skills. We want people with STEM educations. We want them focused on science, technology, maths. And you know what? We're also looking for more girls in those areas, right? So if we want to make that happen, we've got to be part of that solution as well. And so we are also building equitable, essential skills for the digital future and certainly the emergence of AI. And then impact and giving. This is really a bit more philanthropic. This is about addressing the needs of vulnerable populations that may be inside our communities or outside of our communities, but have that root into, you know, making a better society. So just driving in a little bit, culture of belonging. We actually have about 64 different nationalities. Now, this was at the end of last year, working across our different companies. So I think inherently we are doing pretty well with diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of backgrounds. But we really want to cultivate that. We really want to make sure that that is working for every single one of those people, you know, every single background. One of the things that we do we are really a strong proponent of ERGs, employee resource groups. So through our people team, they have 6 active resource groups today. And let me tell you, these are some of the most dynamic, youthful, ingenious people who are very passionate about their interests and certainly areas that they have an affinity toward. I work with the Better Future Group. This is our sustainability-minded set of colleagues. And let me tell you, they come to me with ideas, they come to me with challenges, they come to me with concerns, and it is really, really an effective way to engage with your organization. They're typically a lot younger than I am, so I love to hear their different perspectives. They are typically quite outspoken, and that is why they are taking such a leadership position in a big organization, to be the voice and to be that kind of thought leader in these different ERGs. And, you know, we use them. My team and I will say, you know, if we have something going on and we really don't know how to message it, or we don't know if we're a little off-piste or a little right of center or left of center, we'll call them. They are a built-in focus group for us. And it is amazing. I mean, they are not shy. In fact, they used to have, you know, I think about a year ago, they always used to produce these newsletters. And they had everything from vegan recipes to, you know, tips on how to live a greener life. And they were bananas, you guys. I mean, it would be like, I would read them and, you know, it would be how to wash your hair in 12 seconds, you know. And I always, in that they, you know, they'd always give it to me to kind of review, and I'd be like, is this real? I mean, is this, you know, I don't have to model this, do I? You know, but they were very, very passionate. And if you ever do have access to your company's ERGs or are looking at setting them up, you know, they really have done wonders in our company for really coalescing certain themes within our culture. We also have a youth council. And this isn't new. We didn't create this. We actually did a lot of research before we even instituted our own. We're on our 2nd cohort now. It's about 12 you know, young generation executives that represent, you know, a broad spectrum of functions across the company. They usually sit across different offices, whether it's our 3 corporate offices and maybe some of our investments or operations. But again, they have really one remit, and that is they take a business challenge and address it. You know, they research it, they look at it, and they address it through the perspective of someone their age, someone at their stage of life, someone with their concerns, their experience, their budgets, right? Things that, you know, we don't even think about as being different because we just live our life in our, you know, normal capacity. They bring things to the table, and you know, it's mind-blowing sometimes. And that really has a commercial advantage as well, because they do look at things, you know, these are business challenges, so this is not something that is, you know, reaching out into society per se, but it really does bring that culture of belonging, and again, coalesces who we are and how our people see themselves in our organization. Going back to inclusive connectivity, we really do this in 2 ways. So this is about our commitment to help digitally excluded communities and people across our footprint. And the 2 things that we focus on most: 1, providing affordable digital connectivity packages. You can see here that last year, in 2 of our operations in Belgium and the UK alone, we provided 200,000 affordable internet packages. And if you look at that, if you consider how many people may live in that household, that is bringing connectivity and digital opportunities to more than just one person in most cases. So that really has a compounding effect. The other thing we do is across our offices and operations, you know, we collect and try to refurbish computers and equipment, mobile devices, anything that can also close that gap if people cannot afford the devices needed to actually be online and to access the digital world. So those are the two things that we really focus on within our company. Tomorrow's workforce, you'll see some of these numbers are quite big. So 2.8 million. This is in the UK. We work with a very established partner here called the Good Foundation. And really, this is about reaching as many people as we can with STEM and digital skills to really, lift people up and give them opportunities, whether it's education, whether it's internships, whether it's, experience in our company, or whether it's just matching them with courses that are available in their community. This is what we consider a real investment in society and in our communities. Also in the UK, we have a $1 million fund that is dedicated to an apprenticeship talent fund, and that is also focused on STEM. Also in STEM, this is something my team has done. This is a pilot in Nepal. And so here we've just started this last spring, actually. So it's quite new. The pilot is actually set to finish next summer. It is reaching 500 girls and really bringing STEM opportunities and education opportunities to these girls who some of them may not have had that chance otherwise. So we've just recommitted to helping this continue for next year and beyond the pilot. So that is something that, when it goes back to that equitable, education, and really, do we want everybody to have opportunity to be part of tomorrow's economies, tomorrow's workforce? This is how we're contributing it. And across our operations, whether it's in the Netherlands, whether it's in Belgium, the UK, we have many online programs. This one, our master's one in the Netherlands, is actually pretty special because it actually targets broadband online skills and bringing digital security skills also and digital safety to younger children. And impact and giving. This again goes back to our philanthropy work. One of the key things that we have for us is our volunteer hours. So across our corporate offices, we offer our employees 24 hours each year that they can dedicate to any volunteer endeavor that they want. What we see, however, is that they actually, it comes back to us. We don't really get a lot of individual requests for some off-piste volunteering. What we see is teams banding together, coming together with ideas, and then coming back to us and the community team and saying, hey, can you make this happen? And this is one of the biggest drivers, is that team building and going into the communities and really working together. And we see a lot of repeat volunteering in those partnerships. The other thing that we do is the big ride. This is, to some companies, it's probably a little unique. I think we have a lot of competitiveness. When I talked about the cable cowboys, it definitely extends to sports. And each year we've been doing this for, I want to say about 15 years. This is, every year we get about 500, 600, 700 people across our operations, colleagues, business partners, consultants. They raise money, and it's a 2-day, very fun time. You can actually run half marathon, or you can walk, you can volunteer, or you can compete in something like 126 kilometers a day. I'd like to say that it's just all fun and it's all camaraderie. It's very competitive, but there's also a lot of fun as well. So in 2024, we raised £1 million for Street Child, and I'll come to Street Child in just a second. They are a long-term partner. This year we had it in the Netherlands, and I think we raised close to €2 million. So each year we continue to outdo ourselves more and more. But again, it's the tradition, it's the camaraderie, it's that employee engagement that comes with. It's not just volunteering and fundraising. It really is a tradition that means something to our colleagues. And then in kind, this is kind of the culmination. It is actually our cash donations, it's our volunteering as we translate it to a monetary value, and it's our in-kind donations. Together, that's about $5 million US a year. It doesn't take a lot. I think within 5 years, we had about $30 million that we had actually donated across each of these in-kind donations as well as cash. So it does mean something. And these in-person opportunities, it gets personal really fast, and I've been a part of it as well. In Denver, I can tell you, we've cleaned schools that are not properly cleaned. We've worked in gardens that actually grow produce to serve neighborhoods. We've done, we've mentored young people who are really enthusiastic about a great business idea that they have, and they're looking to get their first round of funding. These, we have people that read week after week for months with children learning to read, and we have people that are working with adults who are learning online skills. So once you consider that time investment and that one-on-one direct interactions with people, and the fact that when you go to a school, we bring our families, we bring our kids, it gets really personal and it means something. And I think all of those together, whether it is the employee engagement, whether it is seeing how much you're getting to collectively raise for a cause, whether it is the tradition or that personal aspect, somehow this volunteering and our impact in giving has been one of the most meaningful aspects of our strategy to date. Going back to our long-term partnerships, I mentioned we've been with Street Child and its predecessor for about 15 years. That 870,000 pounds that we donated in 2024 excludes the big ride, because that is third-party and partnership donations as well. We anticipate that we're getting about a 4 times return on that in terms of impact. We tend to stick with unrestricted funding. And that sends 100,000 children, providing them access in very vulnerable parts of the world. That 100,000 children was in 2024 alone. So this is a really meaningful partnership for us. This picture here, my team actually decided that they would do a pilot project where they would invite, going back to the competitiveness, where we would see there's a marathon in Sierra Leone. And so we thought, okay, well, let's see if any of our colleagues want to raise money and go run a marathon in Sierra Leone. And we had agreed that we would send 8 of our colleagues. We had so many applications to run a marathon in a desert. We actually had to establish a selection committee, and it was an amazing success. They went with our partner Street Child. They toured schools, they met students, they met teachers. They became up close with everything that they've heard about and everything that they've raised money for, whether it's through the Big Ride or other events that they do. To see it face to face, I think, was very meaningful. They came back with great stories and a really great energy. But this partnership means a lot to us. We have direct access, really good relationships with the people that work there. And we just have experiences like this that I think are pretty unique. Lastly, I don't think I have to explain this to anybody in this room, but sitting across a full ESG strategy, even speaking about a social impact, we don't really manage the people and planet agendas all together separately. They are distinct, obviously, but I think the important thing, and certainly when I'm speaking, you know, to corporate audiences, particularly my own within my company, you know, I really say, you know, it's very easy to see the impact when you're making it toward people and communities and society, and that's something that is, you know, very understandable or comprehensible to people. The sustainability agenda can be a little bit more esoteric. And you know, what I like to say is that, look, if there is a sustainability issue, if there is a climate issue, a devastating climate issue, that is automatically a people issue because it doesn't impact people equally, you know? And I go back to the Nepal example. The reason that that is so important to us is because, you know, first of all, Nepal is particularly susceptible to devastating climate impacts. And the second is, you know, it's not an area that really has the economic and infrastructure strength to recover quickly and robustly. And what you see happen, who does it affect? As it impacts families, it is often the girls that actually come out of school and have to help support the family. And so to be able to give, to intervene and disrupt kind of the model, to be able to give 500 girls direct access, unequivocal access to STEM skills is really important to us. We look forward to hearing how it goes in 7 months' time. But really, I just want to make that point that we don't manage these altogether distinctly. People and planet go hand in hand, and obviously progress is what keeps us honest doing it. So thank you for your time today.